Sometimes I really hate living on a busy street. This would be one of those times. Sometimes, all of the time. Hello everybody, my name is Kelsey and we're about to get very, very nerdy with my emotions. So this is a video that I saw on Jade from Jadeyraeread's channel a couple of months ago, and she basically kind of created a tag a little bit, not like officially, but it's kind of a tag, and it's based off of this chart right here, and it's called like the Wheel of Emotions, and basically the point of it is that everything that you're feeling can be like boiled down to 8 emotions. And so she kind of created a tag-ish thing and said anyone could do it. And, you know, like you assign a book for each emotion. And so I thought I would do that. So I will leave the questions down below. She didn't have any questions in hers, but I wrote them out as questions to help my own brain. And if you are curious about that, then they will be down below, as well as her video where she kind of explains this a little bit. But that's really what we're doing today. It's not really a tag, but it's kind of a tag. But we're going to boil down what 8 books make up my emotions. So let's get right into it. Man, that's good today. So the very first emotion on this wheel is joy. And that is a book that just brings you like pure joy anytime you think about it. And I've had a couple of options for this because I do actually have a lot of books that just bring me joy just to think about. But I think the best option is the Heartstopper series by Alice Oseman. This is a graphic novel series that was an online webcomic, but recently Alice Oseman has started putting them in print, and so there are currently 4 out. The 4th one is coming out in the US in December. These are just very cute stories following these 2 guys, Nick and Charlie, as they discover their relationship together. And this entire series follows the 2 of them as they, you know, just continue being the cutest and most adorable couple that they ever can be. So that's really what this book is about, but they're so cute. I love the art style. It's very, very simplistic, and I really enjoy that. And just the storytelling that Alice Oseman has with these 2 characters. They're so cute. And they, like, honestly, you will have, like, all of the heartwarming things happen to you after you have finished reading these books. I'm sure many of you have seen them. They've been around for quite a while, but I love them so much. Alright, the second one is Trust, an author that you trust, kind of like an auto-buy author. Now, I did have a video I did a couple of months ago where I went over kind of like auto-buy, auto-read authors for me. So I'll leave that linked above or down below or something, where you can kind of see all of them. But the 2 that have come to mind for me, because of course I couldn't choose one, is Christina Lauren, the writing duo that I really enjoy, and then Talia Hibbert. So Christina Lauren does, actually these are both like contemporary romance authors, but Christina Lauren is a writing duo that puts out these incredibly awesome romantic stories, and even some, like, for example, there's a couple of second chance romances that they have, and second chance is one that, like, I have to be in the right mood for, and is not one that I usually gravitate towards, but I will literally read anything that they put out because I love them so much. The Unhoneymooners is one of my favorites by them. So like literally their name could be on it and I'm going to want to read it. And then we also have Talia Hibbert, who is I think most well known right now for writing the Brown Sisters trilogy. And I've only read the first 2 in this trilogy, but she's definitely a favorite of mine. I love her witty banter, funny writing style, and so I want to continue to read everything by her. So these are definitely the 2 that come to mind right now. The third emotion is fear, and this is a book that just like legit, honestly, intimidates and terrifies you. So I'm looking at my shelves, and there's a couple, usually things that intimidate me are really, really big books, and I've been reading a lot of those recently, so there's not a whole lot on my shelves that intimidate me. However, the answer that I'm going to give is Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. Now, I don't own this book, and I'm very, very wary about this book because it is large. Like, even people who really enjoy, like, big adult fantasies are like, this book is huge. So I'm very, very wary of the size, but also, like, it's adult fantasy, which I'm not against per se. It's more of, I have to be in the right mindset for them, and 9 times out of 10 I'm going to enjoy a new adult or a young adult fantasy than I am a like big high epic adult fantasy, which is what this is. So it terrifies me to no end. However, the fact that this is a standalone book is very interesting to me. I've never read anything by this author, but Ashley from Frolic Fiction really likes her stuff, and she and I have very similar tastes in books, so I'm already interested in it for that reason too. But the biggest thing that's gotten my interest with this is I have heard that this system is run by women, basically, is what I'm trying to say. And that sounds fascinating to me. And I'm so interested. Like, I'm so interested, but it scares the crap out of me. Popo. So the next one, or the next emotion, is surprise, and that's a book that, like, honestly surprised you. So for this one, I'm actually going to go with Roaring by Lindsay Duca. Now, this is a book that I rave on this channel all of the time. It's a siren story set in 20s, like roaring 20s. It's fantastic. But I got this on NetGalley as an ARC, and it was one of the first. This was the very first NetGalley ARC I ever read. And it was just something about the story. I was like, okay, I'm interested, but I'm not entirely interested in it. But something about the story just kept kind of like poking at me. So I requested it and got it. And so I went ahead and tried to read it and immediately got sucked into it. I fell head over heels for this story. It is not one that I thought I would be interested in. The idea of sirens really interested me, and the idea of roaring 20s really interested me, but there was just something about it that I was like, I'm not entirely sure how I feel about this. But I came away with this, and I loved it. But I came away, after reading this, with all of the lovely emotions. I really enjoyed my time reading this. I didn't really know what to expect with it, and I loved it so much I went out and purchased my own copy of it. I just loved it so much. I thought it was really fascinating. I liked the magical world that Lindsay Duca has written for them, specifically like the kind of scientific aspects of it, because there are a couple. So this one, I'm going to say for my surprise, because I didn't really know what I was getting into, and then it became one of my favorites. Next emotion is sadness, and this can be really anything you want. It can be a book that made you cry. Jade said that she had created a video of like books that made her cry, so she was doing like a book or a book series that's just kind of sad all the way around. So I'm doing a mixture of those two because I don't think I have like a book or book series that's just like pure sadness with zero happiness happening in it. But I'm gonna go with Who I Was With Her by Nita Tyndall. This is their debut novel that came out last year. I got an ARC of this on NetGalley as well, and 25% of the way through this book, I went out and immediately pre-ordered it because it was incredible. So this follows our main character, Corinne, who has been dating this girl secretly for a year. And at the beginning of the book, this girl who goes to a different school has been killed in a car accident. And nobody knows that Corinne and her were dating, except for, I believe, the brother of this girlfriend. And so she is dealing with her grief without actually being able to show and, like, confide in people. So this book really tackles grief, especially with Corinne, who can't really confide in anybody. She does later on meet her girlfriend's ex-girlfriend, and they kind of are able to comfort each other on the fact that they both loved the same woman. But there's just a lot of stuff happening, and so you're watching her kind of deal with all these emotions, and at the same time, this is told in multiple timelines. You're told in kind of this after timeline of after the girlfriend died, and then the before timeline of like leading up to her death, of like seeing their relationship grow and kind of the problems that they were having before she died. And so it's just pure grief. Like, this is just a book about people grieving. And kind of coming to terms with that and coming to terms with who you are. It's also kind of like a self-discovery a little bit for our main character, Corinne. So that's my book because it's so incredibly beautifully written and it's such an incredible story, but at the same time it's so sad. So that's going to be my answer. The next emotion is Disgust, and this is just a book that you really really do not like. I've got a couple of these, but the one I'm gonna go with is one that I've definitely talked about of like, this has been like an answer to other tags, and that is Damsel, and I can't remember the author's name. So this book is kind of a more, it's been marketed kind of as like a more feminist fairy tale story of this. It's kind of set in this world where there are dragons and there are princesses and there are princes, and the princes go to this dragon and kind of like rescue this damsel in distress, and then that damsel becomes the queen. And the damsels never remember anything before being saved, as in like, our main character, we follow one of the women who has been saved, and she wakes up while this guy is kind of like, while on the horse to this other kingdom. So she has no memory of being saved, she has no memory of meeting this guy, she just wakes up and is with him. And it's her kind of coming to terms with the fact that she doesn't know anything, and she's kind of trying to remember and ask the queen who was the previous damsel. And so it's tough with that. But really, it's meant to make you mad because the kingdom is very old, set in its ways, kind of, and the fact that women are there to breed, basically, that's their role, and she needs to not want to do anything else, and that bothers her, and so she's kind of pushing against the norm. So some of the stuff that people say to her, especially this prince, is very sexist, and like, it really bothers you, but I think that's the point. My problem was with how it ended. It felt very, I don't know, like the ending just, it was weird. Like, it didn't make any sense to me as to why that's the direction that she went. And so whenever I think about the ending, I want to gag because it's so gross, in my opinion, of like how it ended up and some of the things that we learn at the end of the book about our damsel. And so I liked the girl power aspects of it, but the actual ending just completely ruined it for me. So yeah, I think about that ending with disgust whenever I think about this book, which is not often, but when it is, it's gross, just gross. The next emotion is anger, and that's a book that made you angry. Again, I've got a couple of answers for this, but I'm going to go with the most recent one, which is Mary B by Catherine J. Chin. I've talked a lot about this book and how it was a disappointment and I really didn't like it. This is basically a reimagining of the story of Mary Bennet, which was the middle Bennet sister in Pride and Prejudice. This takes place before, during, and after the story of Pride and Prejudice, mostly after. It's set into 3 parts. The first part is before and during Pride and Prejudice, or the events of Pride and Prejudice, and then the last 2 parts are after. And really, my biggest issue with this is, yes, I love Pride and Prejudice. It's one of my favorite books. I did not like what this author did to some of our characters. However, I honestly think that these are not the same characters from Pride and Prejudice. It's almost as if our author twisted these people to do what she wanted to do. It's like she really wanted to write a very specific type of fan fiction, and so she twisted characters to work for her. And she didn't take into account that a lot of these characters, specifically Mr. Darcy and Elizabeth, already were characters from the original. Now, Mary you could play with. There wasn't a lot to work with from the original, so that I didn't mind. My problem was she took characters that we'd already known, that we really knew quite well, and just completely twisted their personalities into something different. And that was my biggest problem with this. So yeah, this book makes me angry. I don't look angry now because I've ranted enough about this book that now I'm just kind of done with it. But when I was done with, like, the minute I finished reading this book, I ranted to anybody who would listen. And then the very last one is anticipation, and this is, again, obvious. It's a book that you're very much anticipating. And for me, so there's a couple of books that are coming out still at the end of the year that I'm excited about, but I think the one that I'm going to choose for this is actually the second in the Crescent City series, which is House of Sky and Breath. I am so excited. Like, there's not, as you can see, there's not even a cover for it yet. It doesn't come out until the beginning of 2021 anyways, so there's not really a cover for it yet. But I loved Crescent City so much. I honestly could see that being my favorite book of the year, to be honest. And I didn't even have to wait as long as some of the people who read it when it first came out. Like, I've only having to wait about a year. Everybody else has had to wait at least 2. So, I just want this. I am so excited to see where these stories are going to go. Honestly, I'm just really curious what this book is going to look like, because the first one is stunning, and this one looks like it's going to have a blue theme. And I'm very excited about it. But I love the first one. I need to know where the story continues, and I'm very excited. But that is it for my bookish Wheel of Emotions. Did you agree with my books that make up my emotions? Did you play along in the comments? Let me know what some of your books of emotions are, or if you'd like to do this video yourself. Like I said, all the questions that I've created from Jade's questions are down below. But if you like this video, and I very much hope that you did, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up and subscribe down below if you want to be part of this awesome growing family. I've also got all my social media as well as other fun and bookish links down there, so don't forget to check all of those out. And I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!